or some, things like that.
Okay, yeah, I get that a lot actually. So at some point in my career as well, I was like a very
Yes.
junior business development or business relationship person. And when you go to other people's office for cold calls, or you get their number from someone and you try to call them, there will just always be that first negative response, right? But
Yeah.
as time goes on, some of them might warm up to you, or if you get a proper introduction, things might just change
Yeah.
in your favor. So
Yeah.
how can sales reps or people in sales differentiate between real objections and smokescreen objections? Because sometimes you get some objections, and then those objections are not real objections. Probably the person is just not having a good time or a good day at that moment, right? So how can you differentiate between a real objection and a smokescreen objection, and how do you know when to pursue that deal further?
Okay. So in my own experience, right, and this is something I tell like SDRs that I train, or salespeople that I train. One thing that is very important that people do not necessarily pay attention to is tonality, like the tone of voice the person is speaking with. Sales is a psychology game. I know people will say sales is a numbers game. I don't honestly believe in that. I believe sales is a psychology game. Why I say so is very good or expert salespeople have a very good understanding of human psychology. Um, you also have to remember that people buy from people that they like, or people buy from people that they trust, or people just buy from people that they, kind of like connect with. So people buy from, or humans buy from humans, right? So as a salesperson, I think the first thing that you need to have at the back of your mind is you're talking to a human. And just like you, the person could have a bad day, the person could have whatever the case may be. And as a human being, when I'm having a bad day, there's a certain way I'll speak. When I'm having a good day, there's a certain way I'll speak. So tonality matters, right? So when you get on the phone or when you're speaking to somebody, don't be in a rush to just say whatever you have to say, or to just get the person to just listen to you. Calm down and listen for that tone of voice to be sure if the person is actually in the right frame of mind to actually speak or not. Or like you said, somebody's just coming up with small screen, objections, or if the person is actually serious. Another thing is you need to learn how to active listening is very important. Why? Because in listening carefully, there are things that the person can say that you can use against the person, which is why I started off with psychology, right? Being able to, pick what the person has said and repeat it back to that person. For example, you pick up the phone, you call somebody, and the person tells you, "I'm not interested." Now, if you listen very well, the person has said, "I'm not interested," but the person hasn't said, "I'm not interested in your product," or "I'm not interested in what you have to say," or I'm not interested ever, like at all. I would never be interested. The person has probably just said, "I'm not interested." You need to be able to say, "Oh, that sounds fine. I hear that you're saying you're not interested. What do you mean you're not interested right now? Is there a particular time you'd actually feel like this would be the right time for me to call you?" You have to ask probing questions. So you've listened carefully, and you've taken that what the person said, and you have used it again to ask probing questions. And remember, you always have to ask open-ended questions at every point in time. So from that point, if you ask that question and the person says, "I am not interested ever speaking to you, please do not call me back, do not whatever," at least at that point in time, you already would know that this person doesn't want to speak. But if the person is just, like you said, smoke screen, the person will say, "Well, maybe I'm busy now, or maybe this is really not the right time, or maybe this, or maybe that. The person will just, there's something the person might say that will make you to be able to, decipher that, okay, I still can actually continue the conversation with this person. I just need to ask the right question for the person to actually be able to open up to me. You have to remember that when you're getting on cold calls, you're not selling a product, you're not selling a meeting. Like, the only, to be honest, a lot of people would disagree, or a lot of people would not know. When you get on a cold call with a prospect, what you're doing at that point in time is selling yourself as a credible person for them to actually have a conversation with. Yeah, that's all you're doing. There's nothing else you're doing. If you think you're about to pitch your product or whatever the case may be, you're very wrong. You need to actually put yourself in a position where this person can actually trust you to be able to have a proper conversation with, and then you can actually, find out, if they actually have a problem that you can solve. Because I mean, if you don't know if this person has a problem, then what are you selling? So I don't know why, people would have, mindset that, oh, I'm calling up this person to sell the product. Meanwhile, you don't even know if the person even needs it. You don't even know if the person has a problem. You understand? So, in finding out if it's smokescreen or it's actually real objections, you have to listen very well, right? And then ask probing questions based off what you hear from that person.
Fantastic. There's something you said that just resonated with me and reminds me of something I read on LinkedIn. Yeah, so I follow a lot of sales professionals on LinkedIn in different markets in Europe, in America, in Asia, and Latin America. And one thing that one of them said recently was that when you are making a cold call, your objective in the first phone call is not to sell. The objective is to get the person to the next step in your sales cycle. So let's say the next step in your sales cycle is actually having a meeting with them, or to just
Mhm.
have a good understanding of their product and then their pain points. That should be what your first call should be about, not necessarily trying to just sell to them, oh, my name is this, I have a payment gateway that does XYZ. No, no, no. Yeah, so that's very,
Mhm.
very, very, that's a very valid point. Now, in in tech, right, in tech sales, particularly if you're dealing with products that are API based and you work in an industry that is very competitive, that is, there are many players in the industry like payments or health tech or ed tech, right? Many a times we face objections in pricing, we face objections in speed, we face objections with maybe things like settlement, and so many objections that you will face, right? So, particularly for pricing, how do you handle a pricing objection? Let's say you've got to meet a client now and or a prospect, and this person, you have a price, you've given him a price of 1.5% capped at 2,000 naira, and the person says, oh, that price is too high for me. How do you handle price objections without immediately offering discounts, right?
That's a very good question. And to be honest, the answer to that question is very simple, because this is something that my CEO actually says a lot, right? Um, there's a saying, I may not be able to say it the right way, but pricing is only an issue when there's absence of value. That's, to be honest, that's where pricing becomes the issue, right? I mean, let's all be realistic. If something is super valuable to you and you need, I didn't say want, need. If it's valuable to you and you need it, you don't necessarily care about the price. You get that thing because you know the value that that thing is going to add when you get it. So, you know, my where I work, it's we also sell an API, right? I mean, a fintech organization, we sell an API, and to be honest, we are not the cheapest in the market. We are not, to be honest. But one thing when it comes to selling is we actually look out for what will I call it now? Okay, let me put it this way. So we built a product that comes up that has different USPs, unique selling points. And what we've done is we've taken a very, very good look at the competition. and we've tried to build a product that is a lot better than the competition, right? Now, with that in mind, when we are selling to people, we are selling a premium product. We're not selling a cheap product. And in business, I'm sure everybody knows there are two differentiators in business. Is either you're selling based off price, or the uniqueness differentiator, right? And we've decided to be unique, not necessarily because of price. So in that kind of situation, I know we've had a ton of experience. I've had a ton of experience with people that, oh man, your price is a bit too high and this and that. And then, the next thing we'll say is, well, I hear you, very well. We know that pricing, might definitely be an issue. But one thing we are certain of is what we now do in that kind of situation, in that kind of conversation, we reiterate the problem that they have, because you have to remember that before you get into pricing, you would have had a long conversation before pricing. So I have a lot of context about their problems, right? Now, when I get to that point where pricing is an issue, remember, like I said, the person has already spoken to me and told me about all their problems. So I know how heavy that problem is. I know how much they want to solve that problem. And then what I do is, oh, I hear you very well that the pricing, we're not the best in the market or whatever the case may be. I know how, this might feel for you, especially for an organization that wants to make revenue, wants to do this, wants to do that, blah, blah, blah. But, from our conversation, I remember you've talked about this, and you've tried this business, you've tried that business. And, from one thing that we've seen, dealing with businesses like you, or dealing with CEOs like you, or dealing with payment managers like you, or dealing with businesses in the same industry like you. So in that sense, what I'm trying to do at that point in time is to let them know that I hear you, I know pricing is a problem, but I also remember that you've told me about this problem that you have had. I remember that you've tried different people and you're not getting the results you want. Now, businesses like you, because as much as I have competition, you also have competition. You didn't come into the business to actually just be, basic. You have competition, and I'm sure you want to be better than your competition. So if I tell you that your competitor is using me and getting a better result, come on, pricing should not be an issue at this point in time. So what I'm doing at that point is I'm using psychology to speak to that pain that they have and trying to let them know that, look, this is actually, something that will benefit you. That result you want, based off our conversation, we can actually solve this for you. And then, you would actually have a much better revenue. So that's basically how we handle it.
Mm. That's very succinct. So I was watching this video one time, yeah, of a guy that went
Yeah.
into this YouTuber. He went into different stores trying to buy a car. So he went into Rolls Royce store, he went into Bentley, Ferrari, and a couple of other guys. And each brand used a different sales technique to try to win him.
Mm-hmm.
And when he got
Mm-hmm.
to Bentley's place, they communicated value so much. Like they would tell him that, oh, the price of this AC costs about $2,500. The price of this thing was imported, it was handmade, and everything like that. So you over communicate value right up until the time that you talk about price. So
Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
time you bring up the price conversation, the person believes that he's getting a very good bargain. So that's actually a very good one.
100%.
If you are having,
100%.
if you're having a, sorry,
I said 100%. Yeah, 100%.
yeah. So if you're having a pricing objection, the best thing is to over communicate value before you get to the pricing. All right, that's very great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Ayomide. Then another question I have is this. So I was in an interview recently, not so long ago, yeah. And then in the interview, we had spoken for almost an hour, like 45 minutes. And then the guy said, okay, I can see that you know your stuff. Now, in that case, pick up something around you and sell it to me. So I just picked up an iPhone because my phone was close to me. I picked up my iPhone and I proceeded to, pitch in the product, asking him what were his pain points, if he uses a phone for his work and everything. So I was going on in the conversation, and then I asked him that, okay, what phone does he use? And he said he uses an iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, the phone I was trying to sell to him was way lower than an iPhone 15 Pro Max, right? And that was when he just told me that, oh, I use an iPhone 15 Pro Max. I didn't know what to say anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you are in an industry where you're a startup company, and let's say you're
Mm.
competing against somebody like Paystack, at one of my previous roles, I've competed against Paystack, and that's one of the hardest companies to ever compete with in this life, in the payment space, because almost none of their customers has a bad thing to say about them, right? So
Yeah.
if you're competing against somebody based on, or if your prospect is giving you an objection based on the fact that he has a better product than yours, how do you handle that objection?
Mhm. Okay, let me start by speaking on what you started with and how I would have handled it. Um, the idea, I personally, people can actually fight me for this, but I personally would not have picked up that phone to sell that thing to that man. Personally, this is the reason. I feel like because people have watched the what's that movie, the Jordan Belfort
Sell
movie,
me a
I think it's
pen.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Sell me a
Yeah,
pen, you know that thing. Yeah.
yeah.
So I feel like because people have actually watched that movie and have heard that thing. So now a lot of people now feel like the yardstick for me to know if you're a good salesperson is to tell you to sell me something. To be honest,
Mm-hmm.
I think I think that's the most mediocre approach ever. You have to also remember that if we are being honest, as a salesperson, you can't sell everything. For people to always make it look like, oh, I was selling payments, so I can sell real estate, I can sell this. It's a lie. It's not true. Maybe some people are so good. That's an exception. There are some people that are that good. That's fine. But to generalize it and just believe that, oh, because you're selling this thing to me, so you can pick up this glass now and just start selling it. I don't believe in that. Now, I don't know if everybody on the call is a salesperson or if everybody is presently working in sales, but let's be honest, there's a process we go through when we actually join an organization. We have to understand the business, right? We have to understand the challenges the business is or the solution is solving, and also understand the solution and be sure that we ourselves can actually sell it. I'm sure you've seen on LinkedIn when people always say, before you actually go into a sales role, right? Be sure of the organization and be sure of the product you want to sell. The reason why they're saying that is because they already understand that, yeah, you might be good in A, but you might not be good in B. So find where you're good, find where you don't understand, find where you feel you will excel, and just be there, right? So if I'm selling a particular product to somebody and somebody is telling me to sell the phone to the person, I won't do that. But let's just say I decide to do it. The first thing I would have done is to basically ask that person the kind of phone the person is using, first of all, or to even ask, do you have any particular problem with your phone? First of all, like I said, you can't sell to somebody that doesn't need, whatever it is you're selling, or um, you can't sell anything without even understanding if the person has a problem or a need for that thing. So before anybody will tell me to sell something, if I take a look at it, in this case, is a phone. I'll first of all ask, okay, you want me to sell this phone to you? Are you currently at this point in time on, having any issues with your phone? Are you currently experiencing any problem with your phone? How is your, the user experience when you want to make phone calls? Blah blah blah. I'll basically want to understand everything about that person's phone, that person's situation with their phone, and then I can, offer a solution. Do you understand? Because as salespeople, at every point you can remember what we are doing is selling a solution. So how can you sell a solution when there's no problem? It doesn't make any sense. There has to be a problem first before there's a solution. So the first step is to first of all understand the problem. When you understand the problem, I feel like whatever it is you have in your own bag that can be a solution, you now have to map it together, connect the dots, and see, okay, yes, this person's problem, my solution can work for it. Do you understand? Because in most times you ask a person, you talk to a person about their problems, and then you just realize that I really can't help this person. You won't go to a hospital, right? And then when you go see the doctor, doctor just starts prescribing things to you. He's going to sit you down first of all, ask you what your problem is. He's going to ask how long you've been going through that problem. He's going to ask you a series of questions before he can now start walking through the ideal solution for you. So that's how it is. That's why they call, people in tech sales right now, they call it consultative sellers, because it's more of a consultation, right? You have to go through that conversation to understand the person's problem, pains, and things like that before you can actually offer a solution. So that's the way I would have approached it. Now, in Paystack's context, it's still the same thing. Yeah, Paystack is a big company. Flutterwave is a big company, right? There's still people like Money Points that came up after them and still beat them in this. There's still people like OP that came up and beat them in this. What they did is, I think that's another thing that happens because people just rush into making a product, right? People don't actually do research, market research, or competitive research. People just feel like competition is bad. No, it's actually the best thing that can happen to a business person. Because once you have a competition, if I was the person, or what most great people do is, I go and understand what my competition is doing. When I understand what my competition is doing, I just figure out where they are lacking. I figure out what they're not doing right. And I make sure that my own product is doing that thing better. Do you understand? That's where, for me personally, I'll put in a lot more effort. Where they are lacking, where they are not so great, where they are not reliable, where they are not doing, customer service, whatever the case may be. I'll make sure that whatever I'm coming up with is a lot better than them. So by the time I'm now speaking to a business and the business is telling me, oh, I'm using Paystack, I'm this, I'm that, I'll be asking questions around the problems that I know that they will be having with Paystack. So they themselves can use their mouth and tell me, but Paystack's customer service is not good and they're not really reliable because, when I was running this, when I was running this payment, this happened. They're using their mouth to tell me their problems. And I'll just be listening and I'll be offering that consultative approach that, yes, I know a lot of people have actually talked about this and this and that. But you know what? I think that what we can do is actually help you because a lot of businesses that use that product, they've experienced, moving from maybe point A to point B to point C to, that kind of thing. I'll now focus my own, selling on the problems that they have with the competition. That's the way I would have approached it. You understand? So, like I said, a lot of businesses have come up after Flutterwave, after Paystack, and they are beating them in the markets. That's what they did. They just focused on what's the challenge, what is it that Flutterwave or Paystack is not getting right, that we can do better, and then add some other layers on top of it just to offer, a more holistic product. And then we just maybe sell more on our unique selling points. That's just the way it works.
Yes, that's fantastic. I like that approach, right? So first doing a lot of your market research before you
Yeah.
then proceed to you do your market research, you then add value to your product to ensure that you you are better than your competition before you then sell to them. And also to understand that you cannot sell to everybody that is someone who does not have a problem, right? These
Yeah.
days you see some very ludicrous sales job descriptions. Somebody will
Yeah.
tell you that, oh, you need to have the ability to sell sand in the Sahara Desert. And it's just crazy. Like, some people have those expectations, those kind of funny expectations that you should be able to sell water in an ocean, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
and it's
I
not
think I
always
think
ideal.
I think I think from experience, right? Um I'm thinking of the best way to say it, right? I don't think salespeople actually, I think it's just now, right? But I don't think over time salespeople have actually had the respect that they deserve. I think sales is a particular is one particular um let's say, occupation or skill or profession that people don't look at as this is actually a profession like that. People look at, oh, this person is an engineer, is a doctor, a project manager, you're a product manager, you're super skilled. But you look at salespeople as, is it not just sales? They don't put a lot of respect on it. They don't realize that we are actually the heart of every single business. We are the ones that make every single thing function, to be very honest. Because you can build a great product if you don't have salespeople to actually put it into the market. You're just wasting your time, right? If you don't have salespeople, there's no salary for your product managers, your project managers. If you don't have salespeople, you don't have a strategy. Because the salespeople that's why it's called go to market, because it's your salespeople that will give you a strategy to take that product to market. So, people, organizations, because of the lack of respect, they just throw certain things in job description because they just feel like, and also because I feel like the economy is also bad. They feel like people just want jobs. So you know what? Look, you need to be able to, do whatever you like. Sell, like you said, sell water sell sand to the desert, or they just put whatever it is because they just feel like people are just desperate. So do you understand? There's no respect because you can't actually see that you can't see that exactly. They see it like you don't have an option. Do you understand? Because you can't actually see some funny job description for software engineers. You can't. It's very rare. I haven't seen it. Maybe people have, but I haven't seen it, to be very honest. But for salespeople, there's no regard. They just look at it as whatever. That's the reason why they do those things. So for me, when I'm approaching jobs, when I'm being approached or I'm approaching jobs, and even something I'm even doing right now, even on the side, because I also actually train salespeople. I help organizations with their sales team. I always try to let the salespeople know that, look, you have to be confident. This is not a walk in the park. Sales is not easy. Like, you are being told to be a fortune teller. How is that possible? I'm being told to be a mind reader. How is that possible? And you expect me to succeed in that kind of unforeseen circumstance? So if I'm able to actually succeed, right? If I'm able to actually do that, be confident. When you don't let people just put you down or make you feel like you don't have what it takes. That's my own approach personally. I don't know, people are different, but people can't just come tell me you should do, something funny. I'll tell you, no, this is not possible. I've had interviews with people where it's a two-way conversation. So when I'm going for jobs, right, when I'm applying to jobs, and this is what I tell people, the truth of the matter is that organization needs you. It's not just you needing the organization, because the organization has a problem. They need somebody to come and solve that problem. They have a sales problem. So you are selling yourself basically as the solution to their problem. So you need to be very confident. If you've read the job description, you've read about the business, and you know you can do it, when you get to an interview, there's nothing for you to shake. And I'll ask you questions. How is it possible that you have this problem? Who was this last salesperson that was there? What did the salesperson do? What did you provide for the salesperson to actually do their job right? I would interview you too. As you're asking me questions, I'm asking you questions back. For you to know that when we get to a point where I get the job, you know that I can actually sit down with a business or a prospect and actually ask these same probing questions. I won't get there and start shaking. So that's the thing that I think as salespeople, we need to start putting a lot of respect on our own name.
Let me steal what Olajumoke said. That's actually very spot on. Very spot on. Thank you for that. So
Yeah.
Donald, there'll be a Q&A session. Yeah. So when I started my role in sales, right? I had not built that much confidence. Anytime someone
Yeah.
just gives me an objection about pricing, let's say the person says, "No, I say, oh, I'm charging X amount," and the person says, "Oh no, I'm getting Y amount from the competitor, or I can't afford this amount." my first response was always to give the person a discount. So, how do you build that confidence, or how do you manage such situations where your first instinct is not to just give the person a discount because you're also in the business to make money and make profit. So how do you handle those?
Mm, that's a very difficult question to answer. The reason why it's difficult is I don't think anybody necessarily knows how they build their own confidence. I don't think so. Like, if somebody should ask you, like, how did you build your confidence? It's not like I'll say, I just went and started looking for confidence somewhere to buy or something. Like, I don't think anybody necessarily knows. I think, I think, it's just experience. I think experience would be a big way. Um, I mean, I also wasn't super confident. So super confident when I started because it's new. I mean, sometimes even when going into a new organization, you can still be fidgety. Like every new experience brings some kind of shaky feeling, right? No matter how experienced you are, if it's new, right? I mean, I always use this as an example. We've all, well, let me not say we've all. I'm married, right? But I would assume that everybody has been in some form of relationship, right? But when you're moving to the next relationship, even if you've been in a relationship for 4 or 5 years, when you're moving to a new one, there's still that shaky feeling. There's still that, what's the word I'm looking for? Uncertainty somewhere.
Uncertainty.
So yeah, it's always going to be there. I think after a while, experience having conversations and all that, you start building your confidence. I think that's one way that comes up. So for people, who have had sales experience, in multiple organizations, just having to lean back on your successes before, because you did it, nobody did it for you. I mean, if you were successful in an organization 4 or 5 years ago, you did it, nobody did it for you. Yeah, because you're going into a new space doesn't mean you can't do it. Do you understand? I think the first thing is having that understanding of who you are, your abilities, your capabilities, also understanding your weaknesses too, because you can't also go into things and just say, I can't do it, I can't do it. No. Um, Realization of your flaws is actually a super strength in a way to build your confidence, because if you understand your flaws, you'll be able to figure out ways to improve on them. And that way you can actually, build confidence too. So I think um it will take time for people who are just starting out, but just as long as you are dedicated, as long as you are willing to actually be resilient, don't put yourself down. A failure in sales for me is if you don't decide that you don't want to do it or you can't do it. And not just in sales, in anything. If you say you can't do something, you'll be able to do it. But if you say you can't do something, even though you've not tried it before, you just eventually just do it. So it's more of a personal thing. It's more of a personal question for individuals to just figure out. But it starts by just having a full understanding of yourself, having that drive, that dedication, and just being focused. Just every day look for your weak points, try to improve on them. Also, another very big, this is something I've talked about on LinkedIn. I don't know if you've seen me post it today. Mentorship. Mentorship is a really big thing.
Mhm.
If you have somebody that can just take a look at you and just say, look, you can't do this thing. Like, this is the direction you should go. This is how you should do it. It helps. It helps. But, that's just my own 2 cents.
All right, thank you so much. So the key takeaway from that will be you develop confidence as like the more you go in your journey as a tech sales professional, right? So um
Yeah.
now one other question I have, right, is how do you handle objections in long sales cycles where multiple stakeholders are involved? Now, let's
Yeah.
say you want to get a partnership with a bank now, and you've spoken to the
Mhm.
head of maybe head of payments or something, and then that person has
Mhm.
to speak with the chief technology officer, right? Now,
Yeah.
how do you handle that objection from multiple stakeholders? Now, take into cognizance the fact that you probably have gotten a yes from the head of parents, but the chief technology officer now says, "Oh, you can't work with these guys." How do you handle such objections?
Um, my approach. So let me talk about my approach, right? I don't want to say it's the best way, but this is my approach. So there's something called multi-threading, right? Um, in every business and every product or every solution, I believe I don't I don't okay, let me put it this way. I think there are multiple stakeholders involved in the decision making for a particular product. I don't think it's just one person, no matter what the product is. I don't think there's a singular product that is just channeled for one person. I've not seen it, right? Um, for every product, in my own experience, there are multiple stakeholders. It might be four, five, it might be three people, right? For example, what I'm selling, payments. There are so many unique selling points of the product. So I can sell to a CEO, I can sell to a CTO, I can sell to a payments, I can sell to a product, I can sell to partnership, right? So multi-threading is basically me reaching out to everybody. But I'm reaching out to everybody, but I'm channeling it to their pain points, to that product I'm selling, the problem it solves for each persona, right? That's how I'm reaching out to all of them. Now, you have to remember, if we're all working in an organization and somebody reaches out to all of us, we are all internal, one way or the other. We would have that internal conversation prior to even having decided to even get on a call with that person. Most times, it might not be every time, but most times, once you multi-thread, there's usually that internal conversation where, oh, you got this email, you got this email, you got this email. What are they talking about? Oh, they said they can do this. This one said they can do this one. Each email is talking about the problems for the persona. By the time all of us sit down together, we've just realized that so this one product can actually solve problems for all 4 or 5 of us. You know what? Even if we decide to delegate to one person to actually have that conversation, there's a possibility that the email that person has sent has broken the chances of an objection. There's a high chance. There's a very high chance that this person may have just broken that chance of an objection. That's number one. Now, in a situation where you speak to one person and the person says they have to speak to so and so. My own approach, I don't usually wait for somebody to tell me they have to speak to somebody. In the course of the conversation, I would say things along the lines of, so we've been speaking to a couple of, let's just say I'm talking to somebody, like your example is banking. Let's just say I'm talking to the product person in the bank, and I would say, oh, we've been speaking to other products, leaders in other commercial banks like this, like this, like that. And one thing that we've actually seen is usually there are other stakeholders involved in the process of the decision making process. So I don't know how it works in your organization, but on your side, are there other people that we need to actually bring into the conversation for us to actually have maybe another conversation later with my own team for us to actually do an elaborate demo for you to see actually how we can actually support the business? What I'm doing in that situation is I'm working with psychology. Before you even say it to me, I've said it to you, right? And I've made it look like, oh, I want to help you. I don't want you to go and get any kind of shut down from anybody. I know that usually when I'm speaking to other banks or other businesses, this is what usually happens. And I know that I have a team on my side who's ready to have a conversation with you people. I can bring in my own CEO, whatever. So everybody talks as peers and we just figure out a way to actually just help the broader team. And you want me to touch base with you like in the next 2 weeks or in the next 3 weeks. What I'm doing there is I'm seeking for what they call buy-in. Because one thing that can happen is if the person just says, oh, I'll get back to you, I have to talk to somebody, the person might never get back to you. And then you now start looking like a pest. when you start reaching out back to back, back to back. So what I'm doing at that point in time when I'm talking to you is I really want to understand if this can go further. You also have to remember our salespeople. If it's not in your pocket yet, it's not in your pocket. So you can't assume if somebody has said yes. If the fact that the person has said yes doesn't necessarily mean it's there until they've actually signed the contract. In fact, not even the contract. In my own organization, what we do is, yeah, you sign the contract, but until you start transacting above a certain threshold, that's when we now be like, oh, ring the bells. This is a one deal. We don't look at it as, oh, they've signed the contract, so it's all good. Because people have actually signed contracts and there's no transaction. So there's nothing there to, say you won that deal. So we've said, okay, contract signed, let them start transacting above a certain threshold. Then we now say, okay, this is one. So as salespeople, you have to always remember that you can't start saying, oh, because this person has said yes, then it's a yes. No, it doesn't really work that way. You have to just hold yourself back to a certain degree and make sure that you've actually dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. Seek buy-in from the person you're speaking with, like, oh, how does this work on your own side? I know that, speaking to other people, this is how it works. Is that how it works on your side? Things like that. It helps, basically. That's just my own experience, basically.
All right, fantastic. Multi-threading. That's a new term. So my last question before we open the Q&A session is, can you give us an example of one of the biggest objections you faced in sales and how you were able to handle it?
Biggest objection. To be honest, my biggest objection was somebody insulting me on the phone. that was the biggest one, because that was the biggest one for me. I don't think there's anyone that has topped it, because you have to expect it as salespeople that people will object. So if you go into a sales call without expecting it, then I don't know what you're doing, right? So the biggest one was somebody insulting me on the phone, and I was shocked though. But it's not a shocker anymore. It was the first time it happened. Yes, it was super shocking. Like super shocking. In my mind, I'm like, I'm trying to even help you, so what's the problem? But so I've had colleagues who that's happened to, and they just feel very bad. They feel like it's a reflection of them, and I've always told them, look, don't get attached to the outcome. Just enjoy the journey, right? If you guys go into a call expecting that this is going to close, this is going to go well, this is this and this is that. If it doesn't go well, then there's a problem. I naturally, even outside sales, I believe plan for the worst but hope for the best. So in my mind, I just believe that things will go wrong, so I prepare for it, so that when it goes wrong, I'm not caught off guard. But yeah, I'm also hopeful for the best. So if the best happens, it's all good. Well, that's the way I look at sales too. So I expect that you're going to object to me. I just know you're going to object to me, so I'm prepared for it. If you don't, fine. That's just the way I look at it. So for me, the biggest one was just somebody insulting me, but I wasn't really bothered.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ayomide. Now we'll be opening the Q&A session. Donald, I believe you have a question. Or if you have any question, you can just raise up your hand, and then we'll take your questions.
Yeah, hi, good evening, Ayomide. And
Good evening.
Yeah, thanks for the insights. Really enjoyed the conversation. Well, my name is Donald. I'm a growth associate at Lens Square here, for introduction's sake. So yeah, I wanted to ask here. I wrote it down somewhere. Okay, good. You said something about how when people when people begin to object, especially regarding like pricing, you begin to remind them that their competitors are using this product and then they are getting more results than you are, and all that, and yada. Doesn't that seem a little bit like guilt tripping, just in a way? Just a little bit like guilt tripping. And then my next question is that you mentioned something about what?
Go ahead.
Okay, you said something about how, or when you get on cold calls with people, and then you get some resistance that they don't want to talk to you, or they're not interested. But what if this resistance isn't coming like the cold call? It's coming like when you're already like on the in the meeting, the introductory call, maybe like on a demo or something. Like the person has taken their time, they block their calendar and yours for a demo or a meeting with the team at this point in time. But it's at that point that the resistance is coming, not even at the like I've had the introductory calls and all of that. So I've gotten to the main stuff, and then that's what the resistance coming. So how would you deal with that kind of situation?
Okay, thank you. Let me answer your second question first. There's something called SQL, which means sales qualified lead, right? For you to jump on a demo and somebody tells you they're not interested, then you've not done your job properly. That means you didn't qualify them first. And that's the problem, because most people actually will just sell the meeting first without even understanding if the person even needs it. So that's the point of the cold call. The first cold call is the touch point for you to actually have a conversation with the person to even be sure that this person is qualified to move on into your pipeline. Do you understand? Like, you can't. I know it happens where people just sell the meeting and they jump on the meeting and the person now says they're not interested. I think that's not a proper sales process, right? The normal and the proper sales process is for you to call that person. First of all, have an understanding of what that person is going through. If that person has a problem that you can solve, then if they have identified, maybe you get on the call and maybe you talk about like 3, 4, 5 problems, and the person identifies one. That one problem is good enough for you to say, you know what, you talked about this. How exactly are you, handling this problem now? What have you done to solve this problem? What exactly is the impact of this problem in your organization? All those questions you're asking is because I want to qualify if this problem is that much of a problem for this person, if this problem is top tier, for me to even say, you know what, let's have a conversation. Because you have to also remember that there are problems that are not really pressing problems. It's there, but nobody really cares about it. It's not affecting their revenue. It's not really affecting anything. That's the point of what an SQL means, qualified. It has to be qualified. So when you've gone through that normal process on the cold call and understood that this is actually a challenge, and if my solution comes into play, it's going to take their value from 0 to this next number, then it's worth us having a conversation. Then I'll be like, you know what, you talked about this. You told me that this has this problem. You told me this is the impact of this problem. You told me that you've tried this and this is not working. I'm not entirely saying that we can actually solve your problem, but we actually do this kind of thing for other businesses like yours. Would you be open to having, another like 30 minutes call for us to actually focus on this your problem and see how we can actually solve it for you the same way we did for others? If that person says yes, that's the reason why you go to that call. And remember, when you have a demo call, you're not going to do a demo on things that they did not tell you is their problem. You focus on that problem that you talked about on that cold call, the problem you have identified. Do you understand? That's how you run it. That's the answer to your second question. I hope you got that.
Yeah, got that. But can I add something?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had this case this happened with the case a customer where we discussed the entire thing from start to finish. Where I got to the contract, the fact that they had even signed said contracts, right? And the contract we defined that okay, we're going to do XYZ for you. This is your scope of work, include blah blah, and this took everything down for them, single terms, they read it, they sign it off. Then usually after that we pass them to the product manager so that they handle their product and all that good stuff. So upon getting to the product manager, they said that this thing that we do, you guys are not offering it to us. And then obviously product manager come and ask us, sales guys, what's going on? They said you guys didn't include this for them. And we're like, that never came up in any of our conversations. We spoke to the guys for almost a month before we finally managed to close out the deal. And that one thing that they asked for was not in anything that we spoke of, even after asking them over and over again, over time, over the month. So I'm like, so they're like, what's going on here? There's a kind of mix up somewhere. Like, that we're doing that. That never came up after everything that we spoke about in the first month. So how does one handle that kind of situation if that doesn't happen as again?
Well, to be honest, that's just a communication glitch. It happens, yes. It's not, I don't think it's anybody's fault per se. It's just maybe like a communication, thing. It happens, to be honest. I mean, I've had situations where we've had the cold call, we've had the discovery call, we've done proof of concept, we've done compliance, we've got into contract stage, and all of a sudden people just back out. It happens. I don't know. I think it's just like communication thing, because things come up. I mean, at the time when you guys were having the initial call, maybe they were focused on something else, and then all of a sudden something else came up. Right? It's possible. It's not anybody's fault. I think in that kind of situation, you can just go back to the. I mean, it's just one thing that the person is talking about that you guys didn't include, and you guys already have the solution which can be included. Yeah, you can just go back and have the conversation and say sorry about it. All through the conversation, this is what we've talked about, and we didn't talk about this particular item. Sorry for missing it out. If this is something that you actually need, we're happy to actually include it into this whole thing. But this is actually what if that thing you're adding to it is going to make changes in the price and all that. Full transparency is the most important thing in sales. So just be transparent, have that conversation, and just let them know, sorry for missing this out. This is that. I don't think that is a reason for somebody to just object and say, I'm not doing anymore. I don't know. Maybe it has happened, but I just don't see that as a reason for somebody to just back out or something. But if they do, well, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Your first question was about guilt tripping. It depends on how you construct your statements, right? I'm not going to say, your competitor is using this thing and they are getting these results, so you guys are not using it. No, I'm not going to say it like that. Remember, I have to be empathetic, right? I have to let them know that. Look, okay, let me give you an example. What I would do, I would ideally say, which is based off the different conversations. I can't really get it now because you have to be in the zone to actually say it, right? But in a situation where I'm speaking to somebody and the person says, my pricing is actually high, I would just say, you are actually very correct. Our pricing is not the cheapest in the market. This is something that we really know. And to be honest, we are looking at it internally. But then again, we're trying to offer a premium product to our customers. And I'm sure you also understand, you can also relate to me being in business, that selling a premium product doesn't necessarily always, it can't always be the cheaper or the cheapest product in the market. Having a conversation with you, we identified these problems that you've had. And you've also told me that you've actually tried this and this person, or this and this measure, and it hasn't given you the results that you're looking for. We've also looked at other ways that we've actually supported or helped businesses like yours, and we've actually seen how we've been able to do that. At this point, what we are offering is just a chance for us to actually be able to do that same thing for you and give you the result that you deserve, the result that you want, the result that you expect. If it's coming at at a higher price, I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think the most important thing is getting what you want out of what you're paying for, and that's what we're willing to give you. That's the way I'll put it. So at that point in time, remember, in every single thing I'm saying, I'm letting the person know that I paid attention to every single thing you told me when you were talking about your problem. I paid attention to every single thing you told me when you told me you tried other people. I paid attention to the fact that those people didn't give you what you deserve. I am your friend. I want to give you what you deserve. I know the price is high, but then you're in business like me, and you also understand that giving you what you deserve, offering a premium product, which I'm sure that's what you're also doing for your customers, it's not going to be cheap. But we're already looking at it internally, even though that might be a lie. But we are looking at it internally to see what we can do. But at this point in time, we're trying to focus on giving you what you want. And you have to remember, if you really want something, or if you really need something, if you are really in a problem and somebody comes to you and holds your shoulder and tells you, you know what, I want to really give you what you want. You've tried every single place, but I can't give you what you want. Depending on how, remember I said tonality matters. Depending on how you actually phrase it, your tone, it really matters. You have to speak to people's soul in that. Let me put it that way. That's how I would phrase it. I would just phrase it like I'm trying to guilt trip them. Guilt tripping it comes with a different tone. You have to remember that. Guilt tripping won't just come with, just having a random conversation with somebody or having an empathetic conversation with somebody. Do you understand? So guilt tripping comes with a different tone, which I won't use that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ayomide. Do we have any other questions? All right, I believe we do not have any other questions. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining the call. And thank you so much, Ayomide, for honoring us
I think
with.
Donald has a question. He just raised his hand.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
sorry, this just popped up in my head now. When you guys are talking about how some people usually see sales guys as irrelevant or not as important as the case may be, I started wondering,
Yeah.
is it possible that a product or service is so good that your salesperson could be like brain dead and then you will still get the sales? Is that ever possible?
Rephrase that again, please.
Okay, is it possible that your product or service is so good and salesperson might just be not the best person ever, or person isn't even that good at sales, but then because the product is so good, the product kind of speaks for itself. It's to the point where you might
Yeah.
not even need a salesperson at all.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. So in my organization, we have what we call self-onboarding merchants, meaning that they don't really have any conversation with sales. They just come, sign up for the platform and keep using it and just start using it, right? That's to show you how good the product is. Like we don't have to go through a sales person. The only time, to be honest, when it has to do with sales is when maybe a certain, we have this SMB mid-market enterprise. So maybe from mid-market upwards, because maybe they have like other, requirements, other things, that's when the sales, team will actually, come into play. Somebody put up something on LinkedIn. I can't remember how they said it, but there's a saying: get a product so good that you don't even need a very good salesperson to sell it. Or if you have a bad product, have a very good salesperson that can actually sell that product to be the best. So it's very possible. You can, any interchanges any which way. It's very possible that you have a good product and somebody that's not good can sell it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Donald. And thank you, Ayomide. All right. I believe that's the end of the webinar session. I mean, the insights that we've gotten today are so good. And hopefully we're able to put these things to use in our day-to-day lives and our career as well. So thank you much once again, Ayomide. Thank you much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining the call. And have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.